Hi there, I'm James Brown, and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my background. So I grew up in a small town about an hour north of Adelaide in South Australia, and that's where my family had their small business. It was an aged care facility, and my dad ended up running that for 40 years. Now, at different times during my childhood, both parents were running their own small businesses, and there were times in my life when my dad was gone before sunrise, home well after I was in bed, and my mum was juggling trying to do things like drop us off at school, and then have other people come and pick us up, and then maybe we get to have a quick dinner at night before we went to bed. Very, very little time with family, and that has really stuck with me through life in terms of the way I think about what's important in terms of how I spend my time. After I'd finished my schooling, I ended up going and doing a couple of years of mechanical engineering at university. Didn't like that too much, way too much theory for my liking. Later on in life, I ended up going and working in the Barossa Valley. So I very quickly moved from being a lackey, learning how to machine wood and read wood and things like that. And I learned a lot about processes and organization of small businesses. And I quickly worked my way up to middle management. Now, when I left there, I knew I needed to go learn more to earn more. So I moved back to the big smoke of Adelaide, and I went to go study marketing. And around about the same time, I was 24 years old, and there was an opportunity for me to step in and take over the family business, the other family business, which was a motel. I was very fortunate to fall into running that business, but it was very, very run down and riddled with debt when I took it over. And within the first 18 months, I'd managed to double the revenue and started to build the war chest to do all the renovations that business so desperately needed. And over the first 3 years, we really transformed that business. But the problem was I was putting in 100 to 120 hour weeks. I was probably only taking about a day off per month. I didn't know what time of day it was, what day of the week it was. I was working myself crazy. And I changed my mind and went, well, I need to do something different. And I'm going to start implementing systems and hiring more people to do the working in the business, as opposed to me being the one that had to work in the business. From that point forward, it was pretty chaotic because I didn't know how to make processes. There was no rhyme nor reason to how I approached it. When it came to making processes in those early days, I would just make it up as I went. I didn't have a strategy. I didn't know what ones to do first. I didn't have any idea of what good looked like. I made the mistake of writing a thesis rather than a process, and my team would roll their eyes and I couldn't understand why. The thing is, I did pursue, and I got to the point that with that business, I went from working crazy 100, 120 hour weeks down to working about 25 or 30 hours a week. I got it to a point just a couple of years later to where I realized I only needed to spend about 30 minutes a month in the business. All the rest of the time, I got to spend working on the business and doing business development. And that was what I loved. I really got to choose how I spent my time. And over that window of time, I binged business development. I learned as much as I could, and I used that motel as the guinea pig, as my test dummy for how I could apply these different things that I'd been learning. So by the time I got to about 2017, I realized I was getting quite bored because the motel was so well optimized, so well honed. I'd been testing and tuning so much that I was getting a bit sick of it. And I realized I wanted to pursue new opportunities. And unfortunately, I had the time freedom to do so. So that's when I started up BizTech Guru, my consulting business. Now, when I started off doing business coaching just as a generalist, just to check the water and work out how do I want to work with people. And I very quickly got into working with a number of different customers. And the thing that was really common is that every time I'd help these business owners optimize their business, they'd go, James, I love it, but I'm drowning, mate. I'm drowning. I can't spend time on optimizing the business because I'm too busy working in it. And it dawned upon me that the thing that I knew had creative freedom for me, systems, was the thing I didn't know how to teach them. And I actually end up winding down at that point in working with those customers because I didn't have systems solved. In 2020, I learned about this book by David Jenyns called SYSTEMology. A friend of mine virtually belted me across the face with it and said, this is so you need to go have a look at it. Skip forwards, I was in the very first cohort of people who learned to become a systemologist, of which I'm a master systemologist now. And I spent lots of time working with David Jenyns during the early days, such that I realized that he was helping people in much the same way that I wanted to. It also clicked to me that he wasn't the person that was going to be training business owners and systemologists, because he would want to try and get out of his business. And I realized I want to be that person that does that training, because that's really what I'm passionate about and driven to do. So from that point forward, I got really involved in working with Systemology and David Jenyns, to the point where I work really closely with him, and we go and iterate and build out new curriculums and contents and further expand on the methodology of what is systemology and what is the system for systemising your business. And I help them go through that journey to building a business that can run independent of how much the business owner is involved. What really appealed to me about systemology is that historically you haven't really been able to find someone to just come into your business and either train your team to, or to step in and systemize it for you. You can go out and get someone to help out with the finances, with your marketing, with your people, but you haven't been able to go out historically and get someone to just come in and systemize for you. But you can now using Systemology. And that probably brings us up to the present day. And how do I work with people these days? There's probably two main ways. I work in a done for you capacity, where I get in, I get hands-on, and I help people systemize their businesses. So I take the whole responsibility off of their plate and then do the systemizing while training their team up as we go. The other way I work with people is as a facilitator in a done with you approach. And the done with you approach is where I help take responsibility off of the plate of the business owner and shift it onto that of the systems champion, the person who's doing the grunt work for the systemizing their business. In terms of who I work with, I often work with custom home builders these days and anyone in the building, construction and trade space. But it's not to say that I don't work with others. I work with people in allied health and professional services industries as well. I do my best work with businesses that have got between 10 and 25 people, and I'm really driven to work with people who have got a growth mindset, who are really focused on getting out of their business so they can have more time to things that are more important to them other than be involved in their core business. So if you're still listening, chances are you think that you might want to have a talk with me about how we can help you get out of your business and get it systemized so it can run without you. If that's the case, go look at my calendar, book a time, and we can have a chat to see whether we might be a fit together and see whether I might be able to help you. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed finding out a little bit about me and my background. If you've liked what you've heard, I encourage you to have a bit of a look around our YouTube channel to see if there's anything you can find helpful that can help you on your systemizing journey. I'll see you in there.